Okay. Shavua Kalam, we're holding on the second Sanhedrin, Talmud Bavli, 3983 in the article. That's Lamitet Amud Aleph, about 14 lines from the bottom of the Hebrew side. We're continuing in our discussion about certain minim, apikorsim, who asked certain questions to Talmidei Chachamim, and the answers that they got. And we've seen already that a lot of their questions were foolish. And a lot of times the answers are right next to it. The source that they're taking the question from, the answer is right next to it. The person has to know his Torah well in order to be able to answer them. So we're going to continue a little bit in depth. Let's take a look. 3983, left column in the English. Amr lehahu mina l'Rebbe Abahu. So a certain Apikaret said to Rabbi Abahu. What did he say? Elohechem gachachanhu. Your God, he's a jester, he's a joker, he's a comedian. He makes jokes. Why? The Kamer Yecheskel. He said to Yecheskel Hanavi, Shechav al tidecha hasmoli. Lay down on your left side. And the pasuk there says for 390 days. He would have to lay down on his left side for 390 days. Okay, then it says, like two seconds later, it says, now lay down on your right side for 40 days. So you're obviously, Hashem is a joker. I mean, they can't take him serious. One minute he says lay on your left, next minute he lays on your right. Now, while this question was happening, so a certain Talmud came to Rebbe when they asked him the question, my Talmud is Shviata. What's the reason for having Shemitah? Just a question out of the blue. Why you need to have Shemitah? Why 1 year out of every 7 years you can't, the seventh year you can't work the land? So Rebbe says, now I'm going to tell you something. The Shavio l'Tervayu, which is going to answer both of you. All right. To answer the student first. I'm Baruch Yisrael. Zeru Sheish Vashmitu Sheva Kadesha Teusha Art Shali. Work the land. Hashem says, work the land 6 years. In the seventh year, don't touch it. Why? In order to know that the land comes from me. That's the answer for Shemitah. Now you were asking about laying on the left side, laying on the right side. You know why Yecheskel had to do that? Because the Jewish people did not keep Shemitah. They were sinned and they got exiled. What happens is that once the kingdom gets split into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, so the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom, which is the 10 tribes, right? They represent the left side. Depending how you're standing, it will be your left, right? So it represented the left side. And they, for 390 years, did not keep any Shemitah, right? So therefore, Yecheskel had to lay down on the left side for 390 days. And the 40 days he had to lay represented the 40 years that the southern kingdom, right, the kingdom of Yehuda, was still there after the northern kingdom was exiled by Sanhedrin. It was 40 more years that they were there. And for that, Yecheskel had to lay down on his right side. Now, there's 6 more years after that, after this Nevuah. So altogether, so 390, 40, 390 and 40 gets you to what? 430 plus 6 years, 436 years. In those 436 years, there were 70 Shemitah cycles, and none of them were kept. So that's why Hashem exiled us for 70 years, right? That's why they were kicked out. Now, the regular way of the world is if a country rebels against a king, what does the king do? If he's a very evil king, he's cruel, he'll come and kill them all out. If he's merciful, he only kills half of them. Nice guy, kills only half. But if he's like Hashem, which is a lot of mercy, what does he do? He gives the biggest ones among them pain, and he kind of kapara for the rest of Klal Yisrael. That's why Hashem had Yecheskel be in pain, laying on his left side for 390 days, laying on your right side for 40 days. No, it's It is pain to lay on one side. People who can't move in the bed, they get bed sores, they get the muscles stop working and everything. So it is a form of a pain and affliction. And that's why it was given to Yecheskel 309 years left, on his right side, in order to make a kapara somewhat for the years that the Jews were in Eretz Yisrael and did not keep Shemitah. Okay, fine. Next. Amar le hahumina Rabbi Abahu. There was a certain apikaris that said to Rabbi, Elohechem Kohenhu, your God, he is a Kohen. So this min came up with this is what apikarim do. They come up with their own explanations, and then they ask you questions based on their explanations. So he says, Elohechem Kohenhu, your God is a Kohen, right? Hashem is not a Kohen. Hashem is Hashem. But okay, now he has to give you proof. I'll tell you why. He says, this apikar says, he knows a little bit of Torah. V'yikhli truma. It says in Parshas Truma, take for me Truma, right? This is the Parshas Truma is when we collected the money for the Mishkan. Truma here means collecting money for the Mishkan, but Truma usually means the food that you give to the Kohen. So he says, you see, Hashem takes Truma. Hashem is a Kohen. So he kavel Moshe b'mai tavel, and we know that Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu, so he became Tameh. And if he's a Kohen, he has to be mitar himself. So, and what did he go into? What mikvah did he go into? If you say he went into water, cannot be, because it says in the pasuk, in Yeshaya, that it says what? Who measured the waters of the world with his fists? Meaning, the volume of all the water in the universe is like the fist of Hashem. So there's not enough water for Hashem to go into. Okay, so that's his question. Came up with his own pshat in a kohen, and that Hashem is a kohen. Then he came up with pshat that there's no water that Hashem can go into. So what did he toivel with? Tosfot on the left side of the hand says, "B'mai tovel kashila pe'ech nitma d'Yisrael nikru b'nei l'malkum." How come the apikaris didn't say, he's a kohen? Why didn't he? How could he be mitameh for somebody? So he says, because a Jew is considered the son of Hashem, and a kohen is allowed to be mitameh for a son, right? It's one of the shiva krivim that he's allowed to be mitameh for. But the Gur Aryeh says, but if Hashem is a kohen, what kohen is he? He's probably a kohen gadol, right? If Hashem is a kohen, if he's a kohen, he'll be a kohen gadol. The kohen gadol is not allowed to mitam himself for his son. So what was he thinking? So the apikar is thinking that he was a kohen gadol, but he acted with anivas, with humbleness, and he said no, he's just a regular kohen. Another answer, maybe he said the Moshe Rabbeinu was a mitzvah, right? The Moshe Rabbeinu was a mitzvah, and no one else can bury him, and no one else knows where to bury him, only Hashem. So therefore, Hashem, even though he's a kohen gadol, is allowed to bury him. The Gur Aryeh said maybe another answer. Maybe this apikaris thought that there's a midrash that says that tzaddikim are not mitameh. So Moshe Rabbeinu is not mitameh. So it's okay, but you still have to go to mikvah afterwards for whatever reason. So anyway, what exactly he was thinking. So what does Rabbi Abo answer him? So there's a famous pasuk in Mishlei that tells us when you're dealing with a ksil, with a fool, your answer to him according to his foolishness, right? You can't try to explain to an insane person something sane, right? Lamashal, I remember working in the hospital. You had these patients with dementia, and they thought that they thought they were somewhere else, right? Now you can tell them they're in the hospital 100 times, they're still going to think they're somewhere else. So if you really want to have a conversation with them, you just you don't have to admit they're somewhere else, but you just have to work with their reality. So the same thing. Chachamim know how to answer fools according to the foolishness. So what is your Abo answer? Amalei, Benura Tavel. Hashem, you're right. He didn't go into water. There's not enough water for him. So what did he tavel himself in? He went to a mikvah of fire. Hashem comes in fire. Now, and if you're going to say, what? Fire? Fire is not mikvah. Mikvah is water. Amalei, Adarabba says, no. Rabbi says, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the fire is better. The main mikvah is actually fire. Really, Rabbi says everyone should go into fire. Maybe we can't go into fire because we wouldn't be alive afterwards. That's why we go into water. How do I know this? Because it says, if something that cannot go into fire, you put it into water. Now, what's this pasuk talking about? It's not really talking about purification. It's talking about koshering a vessel. So if you took a guy's vessel and you want to make it kosher, if you take chametz and you want to make it kosher, you have two options to make libun or hagala. So the pasuk says, if you can't do libun on it, and it's only used with water, you can use water to take it out, right? It's palate, comes out, the glios, the flavors of the chametz, of the non-kosher would come out with hagala. That's what the pasuk is talking about. But, this Apikaris doesn't really understand what the pasuk is talking about. So he answers according to his ksil, according to his foolishness, and tells them that the pasuk says, whatever doesn't go into fire goes through water, meaning that fire is greater. I mean, if you think about it for a second, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have a physical form. He can't come down and bury Moshe Rabbeinu. That's not possible. All right, so what does it mean that Hashem buried Moshe? It means Hashem had a machshava. Whatever he thought, whatever that means, he had a thought to bury Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu got buried. So obviously Hashem never got tamei. This whole story is just adopting his own shita, his own opinions of what's going on, and Rebbe answered him according to his own opinion. Okay, moving on to another. There was a certain Avikaris that said to Rabbi Avina, it says, who was like the Jewish people, right? One nation in the land, meaning you Jews think you're so great, right? This is another tactic that Goyim do, right? That's the Avikaris. First, they'll attack your Torah and tell you don't know what you're doing. And then they'll tell you what? You're nothing really special. You're just like us, right? This is another tactic of the Avikaris. So what does he say? My Ravatahu, what's so special about you? Atunami Arvitu Bahadon. You two are together with us. We're all the same. Goyim and Jews all alike. All the nations are like nothing before him. Hashem says that all the nations are nothing compared to Hashem, right? Pasuk in Yeshaya, in Isaiah. So he says all nations, which means includes the Jews, right? I've met Goyim who've told me, oh, you keep Lent. This is a Catholic, something for 40 days, they don't eat a certain thing or whatever. Or you don't eat meat on Fridays, another Catholic thing that they do. I said, no, Jews don't do this thing. What? Jews? Yeah, you guys do the same as us. I'm like, no, absolutely not. This is nothing true. But this is what they do. So Amr Lay, miditchu astehidu alam. Rabbi answer them, you should know that your own prophet, a prophet from the Goyim, have already said about us that we're not considered part of all the nations. Because it's written by Bilam, right? Bilam, the prophet, who was a non-Jew, he said, Uva Goyim lo yitkashav. And among the nations, you are not counted, right? Am levad yishkon, a nation by themselves they live. Jewish people are not considered part of the nations of the world. We're just not in the same category. Don't compare us to you. We don't compare ourselves. Rabbi Elazar Rami. Rabbi Elazar, I just want to mention, I know it's not really connected completely to what I want to say here, but I very unfortunately, I met this guy at work, a Goya, black woman. I think she was Jamaican or something. And she said, recently, I used to think Jews were very holy, but she says, recently, I was in a Jamaican club, and a bunch of Hasidic Jews came in, and they started dancing with us to our music, and I realized the Jews are nothing special. We're all the same. We're all a bunch of people who just want to have fun. So it's a little sad to hear. I think very sad to hear. But the truth is, we have to know that we're different, and they know that we're different. Why should we try to be the same? Rabbi Eliezer Rami. It says, Tov Adonai Lakol. It says Hashem is good to everyone. And it says, Tov Hashem Lekovav. Hashem is good to those who wait for him. So it means the ones who daven to Hashem. So is it Hashem is good to everyone, or is Hashem good to the ones who daven to him? Moran says, Adam Shiesh Loy Pardes. Like a person who has an orchard of trees. There's a lot of trees, right? In one field. When he irrigates it, he makes sure the water goes to every tree. But which tree does he invest his time and energy in? But when he hoes, or he cuts around it to protect the tree and to invest time and energy, make sure it grows better, he does it only to those that are the most special among them, the best ones. Same thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're right. You can bring down Simcha, Tova, Shefa to everyone, and everyone gets it, including the Jews. But when it comes to protecting, that only goes to the Jewish people. That only goes to those who daven to it. Okay, so we kind of finish up on the stories of the Apikursim asking Talmid Chachamim questions and the way our Talmid Chachamim answer them their inquiries. Moving on, the Mishnah said, therefore everyone has to say that because of me, Hashem created the world. And then the Mishnah went on to say that don't say, oh, I'm so scared to get involved with a court case, a capital punishment, because maybe something I would say wrong and something would happen wrong, and it'll be my fault. But rather, it's good to get rid of the Sha'im, because the pasuk said the Mishnah said there's a pasuk in Mishlei says that when the Risha'im disappear, there is song. When the Risha'im when they perish, there is joy. So the Gemara brings down a pasuk now, different pasuk in Malachim, and it's talking about King Achav. King Achav was a wicked king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Very bad. Him and his wife Jezebel, right? Jezebel. They tried to kill out all the prophets, right? They killed Navot for his fields. They wanted his fields. They were just a terrible, terrible duo. I think the wife was worse than the husband, but they were very, very bad people. So at one point, Achav goes out to war, right? And while he's out in war, he against the Ammonim, the Ammon people. The Ammonites, yes. And while he was out of war, someone shoots an arrow and somehow it goes into him and he dies. Okay. He dies, he starts dying on the battlefield. His blood starts to come out of the hole, but they bring him back to near the palace, and his blood continues to ooze out from him up until the near his home, near the palace in Samaria, in Shomra. Okay, that's a little bit of the background to it. So there's a pasuk there that says, "V'yavor harina b'machaneh," and there's a joy that came out in the camp. It says harina, right? The joy. Which joy? The joy about the Mishlei. The pasuk said in Mishlei there will be joy when the wicked perish. This is the joy when Achav perished. Or Achav bar Chanina u'avod risha'im rina. When it says u'avod risha'im rina, when the wicked perish, there is joy. That's this rina. V'yavor harina machaneh. V'avod Achav ben Omri rina. When Achav ben Omri was killed, this was the big joy. The joy was only by the tzaddikim, because unfortunately his followers still made a eulogy for him, and they still were crying for him. But the joy amongst the tzaddikim were very palpable to be felt. So now the Gemara says, does Hashem really rejoice when the wicked are destroyed? It says, when Yehoshaphat is going out to war, his army says, Hodula Hashem, Kilo Olam Chazda. Praise Hashem because he's great. Amar Rabbi Yonatan, why doesn't it say Hodula Adonai Kito, Kilo Olam Chazda? Because that's the usual way of saying, we don't just say Hodula Hashem, Kilo Olam Chazda. No, we say Hodula Adonai Kito, Kilo Olam Chazda. So why did they take out the word Kito? Because Hashem is not happy when the wicked die. Therefore, he's not sameh. Therefore, they took out the words kitov. So, what does it mean Hashem is not happy with when Hashem died? When is Hashem happy? What about that question? Anyone know what makes Hashem happy? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Anyone have an answer for that? What makes Hashem happy? No.
Overall, or with the Rashaim?
What? Forget Rashaim. Any person. What makes Hashem happy? What do you have to make Hashem happy?
Limut Torah.
Limut Torah. Okay, you're on the right track.
Kiddush Hashem.
Solomon is saying, that's right. Solomon's decorating the text. He chatted just to me, but he wrote, when we do his will, when we do
I want
Hashem's will,
okay.
that brings simcha to Hashem. That
The
brings happiness.
acknowledgement is not enough.
What?
The acknowledgement is not enough.
No. When we do his will. So learning Torah is his will, so it'll bring him happiness.
So exactly. So that's for every individual. It's only for the Jews.
Every individual. Every individual. Every individual, and he does his will, that brings happiness to Hashem. If a guy follows the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, he brings Reich Nechar to Hashem. Hashem likes that. Forget the guy for a moment. But that's the thing. So what does Hashem want from the Rishaim? Does Hashem want them to perish? Or would Hashem rather want them to do his will? Because that's the simcha. Simcha is when a person does Hashem's will. So Hashem doesn't want their shame to die. Hashem wants what? That they will do his will. He wants to become Baal Tshuva. That's what Hashem wants from them. All right, and that's the famous story with Meir and Beruria, all that, same idea. Hashem wants the Rishaim to do Tshuva, not necessarily to kill them. So now the question is us. Okay. The question will be to us that we are supposed to emulate Hashem, copy Hashem. Hashem is full of mercy. We have to be full of mercy. Hashem's kind. We have to be kind. Hashem does chesed. We have to do chesed. Right? That's what we learn. So if Hashem is not happy when Rishaim die, rather he'd be happy if they follow the way, then why do we have simcha? Or maybe we shouldn't have simcha when Rishaim perish, right? That would be your question, which is going to come up in a moment about Shvi Shel Pesach, the 7th day of Pesach, when the Mitzrayim were all killed out. That's maybe one of the reasons why we don't say a full halal in Shvi Shel Pesach. They only have a halal, without a bracha for us Faradim, right? Because the Rishaim were dying that day. We didn't want them to die. We wanted them to do Chayzer B'Tshuva, right? So are we allowed to be happy if we're supposed to emulate Hashem? So let's move on. Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
But don't we know the answer to this question already? There was one couple that the Chacham was praying as the Rasha died, and his wife was praying. No, told him no. You should pray.
I just said that. Meir and Beruria, right?
I didn't know that. Okay.
Right, so and Beruria said no. Don't daven for them to die, rather daven for them to do tshuva. But now the question is: are you allowed to be besimcha if they do die? Are we allowed to be happy? Hashem apparently is not happy, but are we allowed to? Okay, another source that we see Hashem is not happy when Rishaim die. What does it say by right before Az Yashir in the Torah? It says, and one did not come close to the other all night. Now, Pashit, this means that the Egyptians and the Mitzrayim and the Jews didn't come close to one another all night. They were separated. They couldn't come next to each other. But the way the Torah wants, the way the Gemara wants to understand this is, you know how we say every day in the Nagdishach, right before Shema and Valitzion, what are we saying? And they call out to one another. Who's calling out to one another? Malachim. And they sing Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So the expression is an expression of using of Malachim. So based on this, Rabbi Yonatan says, at that time, the Malachim wanted to say songs to Hashem when the Egyptians were drowning. So Hashem said to them, my creatures, my handiwork is drowning in the sea. And you're singing songs in front of me. It's not the right time. My handiwork. Now, why does Hashem call humans his handiwork as compared to anything else? Right. So if you look in the whole sense of creation, everything was done with a dibur. Hashem said, Hashem said, Hashem said. When it comes to man, it's like Hashem took the earth and he put it together, and there's different expressions throughout Tanakh that Hashem with his palms formed Adam Rishon. So in the sense, Hashem doesn't have palms, he doesn't have hands, and he doesn't actually do these things, but in the sense that it was done with more significance than the rest of the world that when it was created. Therefore, Hashem says, my handiwork, my masterpiece is drowning at sea. That's the one I invested most of my creation into. And they're drowning at sea. And you're davening and you're singing Shira. That's not right. Now, it's possible that the answer for all this is in the first words of this paragraph in the article. It starts off, "Ba'oto sha'ah," at that moment, right? While it's happening, maybe that's the time that you can't be happy. But once it already happened, right? Now it happened already. We're going to do it, right? So now it's good for us in this sense. We're not happy that they die, but now that you're dead, it is good for us. So maybe then you could sing, right? That maybe in itself is the answer, and that's true because Malachim wanted to sing while it was going on. When did the Jews sing? The Jews sang Az Yashir after they saw the Mitzrayim already spit back up onto the sea, right, onto the seashore. So they saw the Mitzrayim, they were already dead. At that point, they're not singing at the moment they were dying, but rather once it was already done. Efraim, you wanted to say something?
Yes, but there's a difference with the angels and Israel, no?
Yes, yeah. There's a difference also, 100%.
Because
Yeah, say what?
if you compare like a leader of Hitler magnitude or Stalin, shouldn't we be even happy at that moment when in 1953 Stalin passed away?
If a Russia passed away, should you happy at that moment?
Yeah,
No, because that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem wants that Russia to do tshuva.
but if that Russia is causing a problem or of any sort to a Jew or to a Sadiq, why would that be a problem?
Because in the end of the day, the end of the day is Hashem wants everyone to do his will, even Rishayim. That would be the best. That would be the biggest simcha for Hashem. Now, Plan B, because Plan A didn't happen. Now Plan B happened, right? The guy died. Okay, not the Plan A, so it's not the happiest of things. But now that it happened already, okay, now we'll be the simcha.
So another question. If that's the case, if Hashem values and cherishes his handiwork, why does he have a mitzvah of Ben Soreo Moreh? Kill the boy before he becomes a Rasha, if that's the case.
Right, so Ben Soreo is not a good question. Why is Ben Soreo not a good question, Avram? No. Did it ever happen?
It didn't, but the fact that he mentioned it, it's a possibility.
No, the way that come and bring it down, that was never even a possibility because all the qualifications for it to happen is like rare that it would never happen. It was brought down to teach lessons, not necessarily for it to have happened. So that, I don't think you can bring a proof of Ben Sorry.
How soon did the Jews start singing as Yeshua Mashiach after the Jews drowned? Was it right away?
No, it was after it happened. It was after it happened, not while it was happening. While the Mitzrayim were drowning, they were still walking through, right? They came out and they didn't know. And they said, oh, the Mitzrayim are going to come out just like us. Remember? And then Hashem said, okay, I'll show you. And he threw up all their bodies. Remember, he had to promise the fish, I'll give it back to you eventually in the future, right? And then he spit their bodies out. So it's a possible answer. I'm not saying it's the only answer. There are other answers. Rav Schwab has a whole understanding difference between malachim and humans and why humans could sing and why malachim can. And there are other opinions as well. But let's move on.
I'm sorry. So the answer is while the person is alive, we cannot ask for him to die. Correct?
While the person is alive, we should not ask for them to die. Right. We should rather ask for them to do tshuva. We shouldn't be happy if they die. Rather, we want them to do tshuva.
After they die, you should be happy for that?
After they're dead, you should be happy that they're no longer here to bother you. I don't know. You have to be you have to be happy that they're dead. Yeah, you should be happy that they're no longer around to bother you.
I'm sorry, just a last question, but in that case, then there is no difference between an angel and us, because Hashem was telling the angels, "Why are you happy? Because I'm destroying my creations."
Okay,
but
so
to
then
us, he didn't say nothing because he was saying.
So you're saying the angels would have sang later, Hashem wouldn't have had a problem with that.
That's my point.
It's possible. Well, they didn't sing later. You know, angels are at the moment people. They don't sing later. Only we come to Shachar late. Avram, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So Amr Rezi Barchanina says, "Who enusas aval missis?" Hashem himself doesn't rejoice at the downfall of the wicked, but he causes others to rejoice. It's true. Hashem wants to do tshuva, but people, Hashem helped them out, so they should be rejoiceful. Take a nami. Look at a pasuk in Devarim, Dichtiv, Yasit. He will cause others to rejoice. Lo kativ Yasus, that he will rejoice. Shema mina, learn from this that Hashem allows us to rejoice, but he doesn't rejoice himself. Okay, fine. So you're allowed to be happy that the Russia is no longer bothering you. So now that we talked about Achav, we're going to talk a little bit more about Achav. The king Achav, terrible guy, right? And when he dies, the pasuk there says that his blood, v'hazonot rahatsu, it washed the zonot. Now, zonot usually means prostitutes. So his blood washed the prostitutes. That's the simple meaning of the pasuk. What does that mean? How do you understand that? Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Lemarek shte hezionot. Don't read it hazonot, but rather read it hezionot, right? Hey and ches for drush is interchangeable, right? You can change a hey and a het. I think that's possibly why a lot of people read the hey like a ches. As per drush, you could do that. You shouldn't really do that for reading, but if it happens, it happens. So anyway, so it clears up two visions. Chazon comes from the blushing of chazon, right? We say it in tefillah, chazon tzfanya, right? So the chazon is a vision. Achat shel Michayo ve'achat shel Eliyahu. There were two neviim, Michayo and Eliyahu. Now, in Michayo, it says, Im shotashu b'shalom lo diber Hashem. If Achav would return in peace from the battle, Hashem did not speak to me. That what did Achav say? Well, what did Michayo say? That Achav would die in battle. But Eliyahu, it says, that in the place that his dogs lap the blood of Navot, that's where they would lick the blood of Achav. Now, where was Navot killed? Navot was killed in Samaria, away from the battlefield, near the fields where Achav had his palace, where he wanted his fields, wanted Navot's field. So how can it be that he died in the battlefield and the dogs licked it up? So now that we understand how he died, like I explained to you, got shot with an arrow. He was already dying in the chariot, and they tried to rush him back to Samaria. And when they brought him back, he was still oozing out blood, and the dogs licked it up there. So that his death cleared up the two nevi'im, the two prophecies and visions of Michayo and Eliyahu. Rava says no. Zonot mamash, really prostitutes, the blood washed up prostitutes. What does this mean? Achav ish mitzunan haya. Achav was a cold man, meaning that he was intimate relations didn't interest him. He had what we can say a low libido, right? He wasn't interested in intimate relations. He never was interested. So so his wife came up with a plan to get him a little bit, make him a little bit passionate. So what did she do? She put two pictures of prostitutes on his chariot for him. So he should see the pictures, and then he would become aroused, and then maybe they will have relations. So when he died, his blood washed away those pictures. Okay. Now it says, "Ish mashach b'kesher letumo v'yake." A man drew his bow and arrow letumo. What does the word letumo mean? And then he killed Achav. That means innocently. I mean, the guy didn't even know he was going to attack the king of Israel. He just took up a bow and arrow and shot it, and somehow it flew into the king. Lefi tumo. Rava says, Latam shtei chezionot. Latam means to complete. Came to fulfill the two prophecies. Achat shel Michayo, v'achat shel Eliyahu. Okay, and whatever I told you before, it can be found in note 25 in the article. Most of it. Okay. Next, Simon. There's a Simon. Kra, Zacha, Edom. Okay. Let's start with Kra. It says a little bit more about Achav. Achav had a servant that worked for him, a minister, a servant, and his name was very famously Ovadiah. Ovadiyahu. Ovadiah was a huge Talmud Chacham. Ovadiah was also a Navi. So he was working for Achav. It says, Achav Ovadiyahu Asher al Habayit. Achav calls Ovadiah who was in charge of his house. He was over the household. He was like, Yosef in Potiphar's house, right? So he was in charge of the household. So he says, then the pasuk continues, "V'Ovadiyahu haya yareh et Hashem me'od," and Ovadiah feared Hashem very much. So how do you understand this pasuk? My come across what the pasuk saying that Achav called Ovadiah, and then the pasuk says Ovadiah is fearful of Hashem. So Amar Yitzchak, Amar Le, this is what Achav was saying to him. He says, Achav, you're not a really religious man. Why? K'tiv, Yaakov K'tiv. By Yaakov it says when Yaakov went to Lavan's house, Lavan started getting a lot of bracha, right? Up until then he had only girls, and then we had boys. Up until then he didn't have a lot of money. And now all of a sudden he had a lot of money. So he tells Yaakov Avinu, I did my magic and I realized that Hashem blessed me because of you. Yaakov was a tzaddik. So Lavan's house got blessed. The Yosef K'tiv says, Vayvrech Hashem in Beis HaMitzri b'glal Yosef. Hashem blessed Potiphar's house because of Yosef. Again, Yosef was a tzaddik, and that's why his boss's house got blessed. But you, Ovadia, you walk around like you're a tzaddik, but my house is not blessed, right? Something doesn't go right for the Russia. Who does he blame? He blames the tzaddik, right? It's not my fault that I'm not getting money. It's not my fault that it's not good for me. It's the tzaddik's fault. If the tzaddik was a good tzaddik, then since I know him, he's in my house, everything should go well for me. That's what he says. So first of all, what bracha, what was he missing in Achav's house? The first one is saying that Achav had a that note 30. But you notice that Achav had 70 children and was extremely wealthy. So what was he complaining about? So the Ben Yehuda suggests that his astrologers foretold the eventual impoverishment and his children's deaths. All 70 would be killed right away. So he realized that he wasn't really blessed. So he was saying, so Ovadia, all this is going to happen to me because of you. So what happened at that moment when he started to blame Ovadia and say that you're not a real tzaddik? Shemalo Yira Elohim Ata. Perhaps you're not a fearful man of Hashem. You're not a tzaddik. Yatzta Batko V'Amra. The voice came out from heaven and said, Haya Yarek et Hashem Me'od. Ovadia, he's a huge Yara Hashem Me'od. Aval Beito Shel Achav Enu Mezuman LeBracha. But the house of Achav cannot get bracha. Bracha cannot fall on his house. Right? Note 31, the Maharsha explained that bracha from a tzaddik cannot fall onto a rasha unless the rasha has some sort of zechut. The way they explain it, that Lavan had a zechut. What was his zechut? He had Rachel and Leah. He had two children that were tzedkaniot. They were big righteous ladies. So therefore, the bracha of being associated with Yaakov can fall on him. Potiphar, he had an adopted daughter, Osnat, but it was his daughter. Whoever adopts is considered their parents. And since he had a tzaddiket growing up in his house that eventually Yosef would marry, right? So the bracha can fall. But can fall on them, can go on them. But Achav, he didn't have anyone who was a tzaddik in his family. That's all of them were going to be killed out. And since he had no tzaddikim in his family, there was no way that the bracha of being associated with the tzaddik like Ovadia can help him out. Okay. I have more to say on this, but let's see if we can finish up and then we go. Just basically, the thing is, if you have a place for a bracha to go, the bracha can go. It's similar to, if you remember the story with Elisha and the woman, it's actually Ovadia's wife, right? Think about it. It's very associated with each other. Ovadia's wife, after Ovadia dies, right? Ovadia dies. We're going to see in a minute that he kept a lot of Nevi'im alive in two mountains, 50 here, 50 there, right? This is the Haftarah we read in Parshas Vayishlach. And he's feeding them water, everything. And then he dies, and he borrowed a lot of money to feed them. Now, his wife is left with a huge amount of bills. So she sees Elisha, and she tells Elisha, my husband was a great tzaddik. He took a lot of money out. He borrowed. We have nothing to pay back. We have money, and everyone's coming to take money. What to do? So Elisha says, what do you have in the house? She says, I have a little bit of oil, right? So he says, okay, let's start pouring the oil. He says, you have more kalim? She says, hey, you have more vessels? She says, no. He says, go borrow. So she went and borrowed as many kalim as she can. And everything, all the kalim got filled with oil as much as they had. When they had nothing left, the oil stopped. So the idea is, a bracha can't go unless you have a vessel for the bracha to go in. So Russia doesn't have the vessel. If you have a child who's a tzaddik or a tzaddiket, then the bracha can go there. And if they don't have it, there's no kalim for the bracha to go on. The bracha can't go. That's the idea. Brian, you had a question on that?
Yes, there is a difference in the story of Lavan and Elisha, because here Elisha was helping this lady, so she had to have her kli ready. With in regards to Lavan and Yaakov, they lived in the same place. So if whatever Lavan earned, half of it was Yaakov's. So Yaakov's kli wasn't enough to have, even if Lavan would have been, and he was Rasha and Rasha.
But what about the fact? What about the fact that that Lavan started having healthier, stronger, and he had started having children and having boys that he didn't have before? What does that have to do with money?
Yeah, but for him, all the kids are not important. For him, the wealth was monetary.
But still, the bracha was that also. That's what the Midrash says. The bracha was that he started having boys.
And it's also a part because.
And what about Yosef? Yosef didn't do any business for Potiphar. He was just in charge of the house. Nothing to do with business, right? It has to do with the fact.
Yosef is different, but they were still kids of Yaakov. So it was his kid that was full and complete. That's why he was getting the blessing. And inadvertently, Lavan was also being blessed by that, even though he didn't consider that as a blessing. But it was still the same source.
You say the bracha was coming. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying the Marsha is saying the bracha came because he had two daughters that were Tzidken Yod. That's what the Marsha says. And that Potiphar had Osnat. That's why it came to him. Not
but comparing the story of Elisha to this is a bit different.
It's a stretch. It's 100% a stretch. But the idea is that you need to have a keli for it to go in, right? You need to have a tzaddik or a tzaddik in order for the bracha to go. Because you can have, a simpler example. You can have the biggest chief rabbi, the biggest tzaddik in the world sitting next to you. But if you're not ready to observe from them any Torah, you're not going to get it, right? If you're not ready to learn and see, you're not going to get it. That's the idea. You have to have keli. You have to be a keli in order to get stuff. That's the idea. Let's move on. Amar Rabbi Abba, Yoter. It's greater what it says about Avadia, that was stated by Avram. Avram like Me'od, because when Hashem says Hashem says to Avram, I know you are Yireh Hashem. Hashem didn't use the word Me'od. But by Avadia, Hashem says he is Yareh Me'od. So the Parshim say, obviously, Abraham was greater than Avadia, but Avram may have been greater in Ahavas Hashem, love of Hashem, maybe not in Yiras Hashem. Or maybe he was also in Yiras Hashem, but since Hashem was talking to Avram, when you're talking to someone, you never can tell them their full praise. Therefore, he didn't want to say Me'od when he was talking to Avram, but to Avadia, he wasn't talking directly to Avadia. Therefore, he did use the word Me'od. I'm Rabbi Yitzchak. Why did Avadia have Nevuah? Nevuah usually only goes to the descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, not to Gerim. How could it go to him? You know why? As a guy, he got Nevuah, even though he was a ger. Usually they don't get Nevuah because he hid 100 Nevi'im. Izebel, right, the wife of Achab, was going around killing the prophets of Hashem. And he took 100 Nevi'im, right, a minister of Izebel, right, someone who works in the government. And here he was going against the government and saving 100 prophets. And he hid 50 here and 50 there. Why did he hide 50 there, 50 here? He learned from Yaakov. Yaakov said, I'll split the camp in half, so one should be ready to go. Right? And that's the way Hashem has always dealt with the Jewish people throughout the generations. If you think about it, there were Jews in Germany, and at the same time the Jews were in Spain and North Africa. When Germany was in trouble, Spain and North Africa was okay. When Spaniards had the Inquisition, the Jews of France and Germany were okay. It's always like this. There's two sides of the world where the Jews are, so if one happens, there's another one, a machana and a Charlotte Fleta. Today, Israel and America would be an example, two camps, major camps of Jews. Right? Omar, no, not because he was learning from Yaakov to split them up. Because Lamaisa, if Izebel sent enough KGB agents to find the Nevi'im, they could have found the two mountains at the same time. So why did he have two mountains? Because a regular cave usually only holds 50 people and not more. What's the nevuah that Ovadia had? He gave a nevuah about what would happen to Edom. What would happen to Edom? Why did he have a prophecy about Edom? Edom represents the nation of Esav. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hadar ben Shnei Rishaim, Ovadia, who lived amongst two Rishaim, Achav and his wife Izebel, and he did not learn from Achav, the king or the queen. But he'll come and he'll say nevuah about the destruction of Esav, Shadad Shnei Tzadikim, who lived between two Tzadikim, Yitzchak and Rivka, and he did not learn from their ways to be good. So Mida Kedega Mida Ovadia. Amar Ephraim, Mikasha'a Tamidosha Rimeir, Mishum Rabbi Meir. Ephraim from Mikasha'a, a student of Rabbi Meir said the name of Rabbi Meir, Ovadia Gir Adomihi. Ovadia is a gear from Edom. Behind the Amr Inche, Mine Uve Avo Nezel Be Narga. Right, from the forest itself comes the handle of the axe. All right, that was a Matasyahu song that was kind of popular in the 2000s. But that's the source for it. From the forest itself comes the handle of the axe, meaning from itself, from their own place, that's where the destruction comes. Ovadia, who was an Edomite, who became a Jew, he gave prophecy for the destruction of his own former people. Similarly, Vayachit Moab, Hashkem Otam Arza. King David, he was fighting against Moab, right? And he was killing them. He killed 2/3 of them. He lined them up on the ground. So what about this? From the forest itself comes the handle of the axe, because if you think about it, David HaMelech is from Moab himself. Ruth HaMoviah, she came from Moab. And David HaMelech comes from them. And David HaMelech, who is partial Moavi, whatever, and obviously he's 100% Jew, but he has genetics of a Moavi. He goes and he fights against the Moavim and he kills them. He author Rav Dimi Amar, Rav Dimi says, Yarach mitocha masrechet. A lot of time, a thigh rots from the middle. The thickest part of the thigh rots first. When a piece of meat starts to rot, a lot of times it rots from the inside. And same idea, Edom Ovadia rots Edom from the inside. David HaMelech rots Moab from the inside. Okay, talking a little bit about Moab. Moab, why was Moab Zoicha to David HaMelech? Right, because there was a king, Eglon, and once one of the judges goes to Eglon, and he really wants to kill the guy, but he says Hashem's name, and Eglon says, "Oh, he said Hashem's name," and he stands up with kavod to Hashem. So he stands up with kavod to Hashem. Hashem says, "Oh, you're mechabed me. I'll make sure one of your children will become part of the royalty of the Jewish nation." Now, many years later, there was another Moab king, and this Moab king, I think his name was here in English they say Meishe. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Mesha or something like that. I don't think it's Misha, but anyway, Mesha, king of Moab, he also was a king of Moab, and he was fighting against the Jews, and he kept losing. He fought against other countries, and he won. They asked his wise people, "Why am I losing to the Jews?" So they said, "Oh, they have the chut of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu took his bed, who he waited for 100 years, and then he took his child, and he brought him up as a korban, and because of that, they have that zchut avot." So he says, "Did he actually shech them?" They said, "No." He said, "You know what? I'll shech them. I'll take my own son, and I'll shech them." That says, he took his oldest son, who was supposed to become the next king, and he offered him as a burnt offering on the wall. Right? Choma could also be from the lashon of the sun, the chama. Anyway, maybe it was a sun idol worship. Rabbi Shmuel argued. One says no, he didn't bring it up for idol worship. He brought it up for Hashem. Just like Yitzchak was brought up to Hashem, he brought up his son to Hashem. But one says, no, you actually brought it up for Avodah Zarah. Right? Now, right after this incident happens, the pasuk says Hashem got really upset with the Jews. Now, why? If you say that he brought up the Shem Shemayim, this is what it means that he gets of Gadol Yisrael. That's why Hashem got upset with the Jewish people. Because what did Hashem say? That here he is, this guy is not even Jewish, and he wants to do good things for me. Obviously, he did the wrong thing by shechting his son and bringing him up as a carbon. I don't want that, but he was having good intentions. You Jews, but at that time the Jews were not following the Torah at all, and so you Jews are Jewish people, and you're not doing what I want at all, right? Not even mistakenly doing what I want. You're not even doing with mistakes. You're just not doing it. You're going against the Torah completely. And here he is doing the right thing. That's why it says Hashem got very upset with the Jewish people. But if he did it for Avodah Zarah, why was Hashem upset with the Jewish people if you brought up as part of Avodah Zarah? Rishu ben Levi, like Rishu ben Levi. The Rishu ben Levi, Rame. He says two psukim. It says in one past pasuk in Yecheskel, and like the laws of the nations that surround you, you have not done. So Yecheskel says to the Jewish people, you didn't do what the Goyim do, right? Sounds pretty good. And then it says, what the Goyim do, you did do. So which one is it? So let's see. So the Gemara said, when it says you didn't do like the Goyim, meaning you didn't do the good things that the Goyim do. So there some things the Goyim do good. They're kind to people, they're nice people, they have charity organizations, whatever it is. I don't know. Whatever good things that they do, you didn't do them. Hashem to the Jewish people. So you didn't learn from the Goyim how to be good. But they're perverse and disgusting and bad things that they did, that you did learn. And that's what Hashem got upset about. That you're learning the bad things from them and not learning the good things from them. All right, if you're going to learn from them anything, learn the good things. Don't learn the bad things. Right afterwards, the pasuk says, the people of Israel departed from him and they returned to the land. The Jews turned so bad, they continued to go to the lowest level possible. Just to end off the parak, the Hanara Yafa Ad Me'od. It says, say it again, Ephraim. We're taught what?
We're not. It's not necessarily good to learn from others. Even if it's good, there is something always entailed in it that has a negative connotation to it. Know what I mean?
You shouldn't learn something good from a bad source. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it is
why
true.
should we learn from?
That is true. But here the thing is, you're learning from them bad things anyway. Why didn't you learn the good thing?
I hear you. In that context, I understand.
Right. That's what it's saying. Right. That's what it's saying. Now the truth is, can you learn from Goyim anything at all? The truth is you can, right? We're allowed to take truth from any source it goes, but you have to be very careful when doing it, right? You have to know enough Torah to be able to understand what is actual truth and what is not actual truth. You know, you have to make sure that your philosophies are not going to be messed up, because like right now, I'm sure in old college campuses, gender identity and gender whatever is a big topic. And if you're not well versed in Torah to understand how the Torah approaches these things, you can get confused and believe, and that to be the truth and the Torah being wrong, right? So you really have to be strong in philosophy. I think that's what the past two Gemara shears that we had in dealing with the Apikarsim. You have to know how to talk to them. You have to know how to talk to these people. You have to understand for yourself, how to look at these different things. Requires a lot of Torah learning and stuff like that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we recommend that our youngsters who go from Mesivta, go from high school, and if they want to go to college, I'm not saying they have to go to college, but if they want to go to college, we recommend them not to go to Queens College or LaGuardia or any of these, but to go to Jewish colleges, right? Where they're not going to teach them philosophies that are not congruent with the Torah, right? For example, myself, for my undergraduate, I went to Touro College. There was a men's division in Flatbush, not in the Queens one. It was in Brooklyn at the time, so I was learning in Flatbush in Jan 16 with only men's classes. We did have some mixed classes on a Sunday or a Friday, or in the summer there were some things like that. But most times it was just separate class, and most of our professors were religious Jews. You didn't have to deal with any of the crazy philosophies or stuff like that. You know, you learned your courses and you went. And obviously, when I had to go for my nursing program, went to New York University, which was not a Jewish program. But at that time, I was already what? 23, 24. It was already, you were much older with a much stronger mind, and you learned enough Torah. You're able now to deal with the goyim a little better. Just something to keep in mind. Okay. Vahanara yafa ad me'od.
Would that be okay though, as the child gets older, just like in your example?
Yeah. What would be
Uh,
okay?
Just as you said, then maybe the first 2-3 years to go into like Turu or
Yeah,
into
that's the way
university,
it's done. That's the way it's done in yeshiva circles. That's the way it's done.
so,
Anyone who goes to those schools,
yeah.
they all go to undergraduate schools. They go to either Turo or YU or any of the other programs that are a yeshiva mindset, right? A Torah mindset. And then when you come to the graduate programs, and if there's a graduate program that has a yeshiva mindset and is of equal value, and people would accept them and hire them at the same rate, then you should go there. But if there isn't, like at my time, there was no bachelor program for nursing in a Jewish environment. Now there is. Turo does have one, but even there, it's not really a Jewish environment. It's run by Goyim, but it's under Turo. But if there was a Jewish environment, then you should go there. But if not, already when you're really older, it's a little easier to deal with. Hopefully, you're already married or you're in the parsha of getting married and stuff like that. I had a friend, and I'm getting a couple lines left, but I had a friend who was going for dental school, right? So he did his undergraduate at Turo, and when he started to go to dental school, where he took his whatever exams they take, he got married that year, and then he went to Temple University in Philadelphia or to Pennsylvania, wherever it is. And he went with his wife. They got a little house, renting a house near a Jewish community that's close enough to the college. And he was there, married. He had a wife, and he had the community, and he had his things. You have to do it right. If you want to do it right, it's possible. But in my opinion, for youngsters to go to colleges that spew all sorts of nonsense and they get involved in it, it's a very, 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 very shaky ground. Not easy to do. There's a lot of nonsense that goes on there. There's all organizations, and then in Brooklyn College, you see how much there's anti-Semitism going on there and all that. Person has to be really smart and careful when dealing with these things. The first undergraduate, I cannot see any Rav giving a heter to go to a non-Jewish college, especially because you have so many Jewish kosher options to go instead. I can't imagine someone saying that it's okay as a lichatchila. Okay, anyway, let's finish up the Gemara, and then we'll take your questions afterwards. This is talking about Avishag. When David Melech couldn't get warm anymore, they got him a warmer, a blanket, who was a girl by the name of Avishag. And it says she was Yafa, beautiful, ad me'od. So Amar Rechim Bar Papa, Adayin lahagia lachatzi yofi shel Sarah. She didn't come to half the beauty of Sarah. Why? Dichtiv ad me'od. Up until, right? Ad means up until, beautiful, but not extremely beautiful. V'loy me'od b'chlal, not including me'od. And by Sarah, it says that she was yafeh me'od. Therefore, Avishag is half beautiful, whatever that means, and Sarah was extremely beautiful. Anyway, Hadron alach echad dini mamanot, Hadron alach echad dini mamanot, Hadron alach echad dini mamanot. B'ezrat Hashem, next week we will be starting the 5th chapter of Masechet Sanhedrin, which deals with the questions, the actual questions we ask our witnesses. What day, what year, when, how, what did you see, how did you see it, and how we establish their testimony, or how do we mivatal or get rid of their testimony. B'ezrat Hashem, we will start that next week. Let me just shut off the recording and I'll take questions at this time.